10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson of World Alternative Media here. We're joined as always by Tim Picciott of the Liberty Advisor, and we've got a very special return guest today on our show, and that is David Morgan of the Morgan Report. First of all, thank you very much for joining us today, David.
It's always fun. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, we got some interesting news to go into today. And one of the number one things we're going to go into, because David is one of the best, greatest experts in the world on the subject, would be silver and obviously gold as well, and other things that, you know, relate to what we've been witnessing in the past couple months, which is absolutely unprecedented. If Tim can pull up the article on the screen, it says from The Hill today, it says, almost 9 in 10 concerned about economic collapse, according to poll. Obviously, this is unprecedented times that we're living in, and people are feeling the effects of it everywhere. People have lost their jobs. People are unable to bring in their money. Mortgages are being deferred left and right. And one of the number one things we've always wondered about here at WAM is how we look at history and how we can utilize history to tell the future. I guess to some extent, it's never the same, but always similar, especially when we're talking about wealth insurance. And now silver and gold are the greatest wealth insurances there are. So David, I wanted to go to you first to talk about how, in the most simple terms, I guess I'll ask this question, how silver is going to hold up in this crisis, because we've seen historic silver gold ratio stats lately. And obviously, this is what we've all been waiting for, to watch silver and gold kind of take over.
I will answer your question, Josh, and thanks again for having me on. I want to go a little more broad picture, and then I'll scroll down into the silver question. But for those that don't know, on the paid version of the Morgan Report, I always have from the very beginning started the report with a quote, and it's almost always to do with something economic or hard money or something along those lines. And a couple months ago, I started with the quote, "The next Great Depression will make the last Great Depression, meaning the 30s, look like a small technical correction." And that was Elliot Janeway. He died in 1993, so that quote's quite old relative to modern times. And he actually was also known to say that the stock market, bond market, the markets are nothing more than a large speculative casino. And that was well before the derivative exposure that we have now. And even back then, he thought that they were overdone as far as real substance behind all the paper paradigm. So I want to start with that to remind everybody that myself and many like me, Josh, you and Tim, and so many at AnarchoVegas and all these conferences I've been to around the world, are of the mindset of reality that this paper paradigm is based on the fiction, and you overextend the growth curve where it looks really good and everybody parties like in the 1920s, but it can't last much longer. And we're in the point of no return now. We've started the downhill slide. And now the only question is, how bad is the collapse going to be, and how is it going to affect me and everyone around me? So I wanted to start with that as a backdrop. Moving into your question, right now, most of the talk and focus is on the gold market, as it should be. Gold is really a establishment metal. I mean, you can go all the way back to the Wizard of Oz and see that the Wizard of Oz was paved with the yellow bricks, and it was only Dorothy that had on the silver slippers to try to breach that gold only situation. Right. And of course, the Cowardly Lion was a representative, William Jennings Bryan, that talked about, you know, don't crucify me on a cross of gold, because once you go to gold only, you're in a system that only gold can be evaluated in terms of fiat. So you can only measure gold's value in terms of fiat money. You can measure it in terms of dollars or yen or euros. But if gold has to be measured in terms of silver, then silver actually has a balancing mechanism that's extremely crucial to an honest money system. But that was severed again way back in 1873. So coming back on point, silver will catch up, or I believe strongly it will catch up. But right now we're going through a deflationary time. Gold is best in a deflation. That's been proven by Professor Roy S. Jastrom, who wrote The Golden Constant. after he wrote that book. He wanted to know how silver performs in a deflation or an inflation. And in the book, The Restless Metal, that he wrote, it's without a doubt that silver does absolutely superior to anything ever known by the time he published. So certainly I'm open-minded, it could change, but I doubt it, that in an inflationary environment, nothing gets close to how silver performs. So if we do what most of us believe is taking place, where we have general deflation for a while and then a touch of inflation that could accelerate into quote unquote hyperinflation, then that's when silver will really kick in. So I still think silver's lost a great deal of its safe haven status. But if you're looking to buy value right now, gold is pushing pretty close to its nominal high it hit in 2011 of 1900. And I think now it'll probably reach that level this year, where silver's lagging gold substantially until it catches that safe haven status or that monetary component, which I don't think is going to be coming along for a while. Again, that shift from, oh my, I can't get any money. I need money. I've got to eat. I got to pay my rent. All right, my rent's delayed, but I'm going to have to make a balloon payment, or however this thing turns out to unfold. And then silver's monetary purpose will come back to the fore. And at that point, since there's so little in such a small market, I think there'll be a lot of people that will be rushing into the silver market, but that's after the run to gold begins, in my view.
Right. And if I could get Tim to bring up the gold silver ratio on the screen here. I've been looking at it off and on over the last while, and we hit pretty historic levels recently in a silver gold ratio. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on, you just went into it pretty well there, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on, I guess, its competitiveness with things like cryptocurrency as well, because obviously when we're talking about gold and silver, we're talking about a metal that isn't as easy to, send internationally and do quick transactions, at a storefront. It's a bit more difficult than that. We could go by the old standards, but the question is, will we go by the older standards, or are we just going to strictly be looking at this as more of an investing opportunity going into a further crisis?
Well, that's a great question. There's a couple things. One is there's a gentleman in town that I met at the Silver Summit several years ago, and he has I'll call it a metals-backed debit card, but actually he has branched out. He's a very open-minded guy. So it's a gold-backed, silver-backed, platinum or palladium. So it's a metals-backed debit card and a crypto-backed card. So anybody that's interested in a debit card that's transparent to the merchant. So if you're buying something at a restaurant or a clothing store or the mall or what have you, it doesn't matter. The merchant just swipes it and they're done. But you are choosing if you want to pay for it in silver or you want to pay for it in crypto. So that's something that's, modern money. I'll call it money in quotation marks, currency. That's one. Another one is, and there's more than one, but I'm affiliated with it. Doesn't make it the best one. I think it is, but I'm biased. I put silver in to fund this program, and it was more than just me funding the program, but it's called AGX. You can look it up at AG, which is the symbol for silver, .load, LODE, .1, ONE. So AG.load.1. You should get on their mailing list. It's a silver-backed crypto. And there again, it's in the final stages. It's taken longer than we might want, but I'd rather have it right than fast. And once it's totally integrated, it will too also be integrated with a debit card. So there again, the merchant could care less as long as they're getting their payment. They just don't know that you've elected to pay in silver. And if silver starts taking off and you've put your own wallet in it, let's say, I'll make up a number, $20 silver. I know it's higher than it is today, Josh, but someone might be watching this in 2 months and that sounds low. Who knows? Yeah. So they've got it loaded up and they got $2,000 at $20 silver. And the day they decide to start spending, it's 30. Well, they whip out their debit card and spend away. So that's a way to actually put silver to use as money. And neither one, really, silver or gold, are really used as money very much at all. They're used as wealth preservation or capital preservation, which is fine. But if we get the velocity of those up, especially when people feel comfortable spending them because their value is commensurate with what they feel is fair, In other words, if I feel that, $40 or $50 silver looks pretty good to me now, I'm going to fill up my truck with my debit card, because you know what? 50 is pretty good. That's fair. I think my silver, to me, $50, forget. Yeah, I'm good. So you throw it in there and away you go. So hope I didn't belabor that. But what my point was that it's beyond what you, we're suggesting that, we're kind of stagnated to this silver metal, bulky only, whatever we're going to do with it. There are people that I have run across in my pursuit of financial freedom and more importantly, personal freedom for everybody on the planet, where they have adapted to the new methodologies with still a tie to, let's say, the most trusted metal on earth as far as amount of transactions are concerned. That's the silver market.
And we're gonna go to Tim shortly for a question, but I do want to mention that, and you mentioned freedoms there. I mean, we are facing some of the biggest restrictions on individual freedom in our lifetimes. I mean, outside of the USSR and China, I guess you could say, what we're witnessing today is completely unprecedented, and obviously it's going to affect a lot of people. It's going to lead to a lot of deaths. Just poverty is one of the number one causes of death, whether it leads to suicides, drug abuse, crime, all sorts of things that can stem from this problem, childhood poverty and starvation. I mean, it's not a fun situation to be in right now. And obviously, we're all trying to day by day try to figure out how we can get out of this situation as safely as possible, with as many freedoms as possible here, because obviously it has come down to that question: how many freedoms will we have when we get out of this situation? And many of us, including yourself, David, have been talking about the importance of silver for a long time, and a lot of people are suddenly going, oh yeah, I probably should have bought some a while back ago. And it's difficult for silver and gold to be seized. It's difficult for if you want to hide it somewhere, if you want to put it somewhere safe, it's difficult for it to be seized and taken away. And right now they're trying to go completely cashless. A lot of the major central banks have released papers in recent days: the Bank of Canada, the central bank in China, and obviously something that the Federal Reserve has been looking into for some time with FedCoin and things like this. I wanted to hear your thoughts on, the importance of something like silver and gold as not just wealth insurance, but insurance of your ability to actually hold something physically when all these guys are trying to come in and give you tracking mechanisms and, cashless, technocratic, I guess it's kind of enveloping all of society right now, a cashless society. What do you think as far as that goes, how important it is to have something like silver?
Well, it's very important in my view. I mean, freedom is the most important thing. I mean, let's just take the CV-19 to an extreme. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's just project out that it goes another 6 months. I mean, you could have 400-ounce gold bars in your office, and if you're quarantined for 6 more months and that's your time is up, what good did it do you? None. So again, emphasizing that it's the freedom. The free market has chosen God's money, and I know that there's people that if you say that word get upset. So let me just say that natural law, I mean the natural order of things, have always brought gold and silver to the fore as the money of choice. Yes, I know there's seashells and there's been cattle and leather and on, but let's face the facts, folks. The truth is that through time immemorial, gold and silver have been the predominant money of choice by the people when left to be free and choose what they wanted to trade on their own. So silver outside the system, gold outside the system, I think is important, but I'm not sure how viable it will be due to the fact that there is so much control. I mean, if you're basically required to show that you've been vaccinated, I'll say, from the CV-19 horrendous situation, then if you have to produce some type of ID in order to go out into the real world to perform a transaction, then that silver really hasn't done you much good. Now, I'm not forecasting that's the case. What I'm actually trying to implement is, something that James Corbett is far superior to me. And that's to, one, get you to think, and two, to question authority, and three, when you're going to grow a backbone and stand up and say no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, with Big Brother looking at every transaction that we do, this isn't about surveillance. This is Big Brother, total, complete, absolute control over everything that we're doing at all times, everywhere on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can't get more technocracy than that.
Yeah.
It's
a
their
prison
dream
planet.
come true. So yeah, silver can't be tracked or traced and all that. And of course, there is a book, my friend Franklin Sanders, who's a bit of a silver bull himself, called Highland. You can find it on Amazon. I know that because I just looked for it the other night. And it's basically a fiction of the future where basically the people that will not accept the authorities' mandate to take a certain step that's required to buy and sell do their own independent way of making a life, which means in agrarian communities. And when they do want to trade, they use silver, because sometimes you have too much corn and you certainly don't want to waste it. And the guy that hasn't had any corn in a year looks like, boy, that's awfully tasty. Let me trade you some silver for the corn. I'm not making a joke here. It's a fiction book, but it's a very interesting read, because there will be a resistance to the implementation of this control mechanism. It's a natural idea that most people, not all, most people want to be free.
And there's a problem with often saying, well, it's a fictional book, because 1984 was a fictional book, but here we are. And honestly, I think we're at 2084 at this point, but absolute global technocracy is on our doorstep at this point. And we don't want a social credit system. We don't want the Chinese style sesame credit where, you know, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't fly if you criticize the government online. And honestly, it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but they told me I sounded crazy when I was saying that this was about to be implemented in China years ago. And here we are, and we're looking at one of the biggest technocratic states in the world. It's the most populous. It's set to take over the US in the coming years. And it's a concern because, you know, people like Zuckerberg are going and meeting with the Chinese government over this. Government officials in the US.
Bill Gates is saying how great of a job the Chinese are doing too to free Zuckerberg.
And the United Nations have done a great job of teaming up with them as well. But and they wanted to put the IMF headquarters in Beijing. They announced that years ago. But hey, I wanted to, before we go into any more questions, I want to let everyone know who's just joining us right now. We are joined by David Morgan of themorganreport.com. You can find links to his work in the description, as well as make sure to hit that like button, share on social media to get around the social, or the shadow banning. I'm thinking social distancing, the shadow banning, and of course, send in super chat questions that we could ask David Morgan while he's our guest today. Tim, you had a question for David.
Yeah, well, I think you made a very interesting comment about gold in deflationary times. That isn't really something we hear people talk about too often. I was wondering if you kind of maybe expand more upon that. And then also, you know, we see on one hand, you have sort of like Peter Schiff on one side of the debate. And then I guess you also have, you know, Harry Dent on the other, that we're going to hit deflation, then inflation. Now, for me, you know, I think, you know, having some gold or silver, whether either one of those things occurs, is important. But I just wanted to get you kind of taking, you know, like Harry Dent versus Peter Schiff, and then also expounding upon gold during deflationary times.
Well, I'll start with the latter first. So gold during deflationary times, again, Roy S. Jastrom, the golden constant. So he had to measure gold against a basket of commodities, because some of the study, we were on a gold standard or partial gold standard or a gold cover clause. And some of the times we were on a basic fiat system. So what he determined was what was the value of gold, and the way he measured the value was how much commodities would it buy, and not just a commodity. It was a basket, like, you know, like an index. So how much?
Except now, not with a barrel of oil, because if you have a negative barrel of oil, you know, how does that work
oil
out?
wasn't that prevalent when he went back and started the study. It wasn't even in existence, as he went back several centuries. So we're looking basically at foodstuffs. You're looking at cotton and corn and wheat and rice and that kind of thing. And so he did that study for centuries and determined that gold maintained its value no matter what. And when times got hard, it would buy more wheat, rice, cotton than when times were abundant.
Yeah, thank you for that, because it's something you don't really hear people say, you know, hey, you know, we're not, because I'm sort of in the camp where I think we're going to have more deflationary pressures in the short to intermediate time period, but eventually the system can't allow deflation, because since our money is based off of debt, a lot of people, it's probably not a shock to hear that, especially if you've seen like Mike Maloney's Hidden Secrets of Money Part 4, where you see you've got this much debt and this much money, you use all your money to pay off the debt, the whole system implodes, which is why they're freaking out about potentially inflation. By they, I mean the Federal Reserve and central banks and powers that be. And so in this drastic rush to print money, you're also seeing money not really moving around the economy at all. And so that's why you're really not seeing the inflation. But, is it your opinion that that could pretty much, change in a dime, where, basically it's not a problem until boom, it's a problem, sort of like everything that always goes on, David?
Yeah, well, it's the overused analogy to Jesse Livermore had to go broke very, very slowly, then all at once. Which is kind of a metaphor for what you're saying. What will happen, I believe, and history proves it out, that the cash that's created is basically stagnant. It's just going to the bank and sits there in the vault as a metaphor. It's just digits on a computer. We all know that. But it doesn't have any velocity. But there's some free market money out there, I'll call it, that is in your bank account. And so the run to deflation means that the value of that actually is increasing, or it's hard to obtain. So there is a reason to save it. You don't have a job, you're going to save your cash. No one really thinks about paying in gold. I mean, very few. So you're going to save that US dollar. And so that will put further deflationary pressures. But once the banksters decide to continue to flood the market with money, you'll see a couple things. You see gold and the dollar continue to go up in value relative to other currencies. So a lot of my peers will say, well, the gold is the anti-dollar. That's not true. If you look at Exter's pyramid, the more scared people get, the more they go to what they can trust as money. And the most trusted right now basically is US dollars. The most trusted for 5,000 years is gold, but that's below dollars. So there'll be a run to dollars, and the smart money will be moving into gold because they see how many dollars are being put into the system, but they haven't got any velocity behind them yet. But once the food system starts to increase the problems that we have with the shortages, you'll see food prices start to go up and up and up. And the general populace will say, uh-oh, I've only got so many dollars per week. I'm on UBI. And I've noticed last time I went to the store, peanut butter was $6 a jar, and now it's $8.
And I've got 10,000 rolls of toilet paper, but I don't have any food to have anything come out the other way. So, and I've also joked going back to 2008 that basically if you're staying in cash or in short-term treasuries, or even I guess longer-term treasuries, you're basically going broke safely. But I like your extra adding to that. You're going broke slowly and then all at once. So I'm going to have to use that and add that as part of my repertoire. So thank you.
You're welcome. So what will happen is there'll be an acceleration. And once that money steps up and there's a psychological change, as Josh indicated, the shift is like instant. It's like the birds flying in that big V formation. They're all going south, nice and slow. And all of a sudden the lead bird takes a hard left and dives for the ground. And that's, once that happens, it's over. And it doesn't take like all the birds. It's one leader. It says that's it. And it doesn't even have to be the leader. It's just that basically the general populace says, it
could be a dodo bird. No,
yeah, who knows? Exactly. I want 2 jars of peanut butter because that's the best way for me to send it. I get, $2,000 UBI, and every time I go to the store, prices are higher and higher. So I'm buying more food because now I could trade that peanut butter for my neighbor's, coffee because the prices are going astronomical.
But the vegan food will still be on the shelves. No,
well, it's absolutely alarming though to see the cows run off the cliff and all the rest of them just jump with them. And that's one of the issues that it's a psychological issue that we've been witnessing for millennia. And yet at the same time, history tends to show when people start starving, no amount of quote unquote leadership is going to stop the people from revolting. And, we could go back to ancient Rome to learn a lot about that. I mean, when the grain shortages happened out of Egypt, the people panicked. It didn't matter how much money they threw at the problem. Their money couldn't buy any food because there was no food, and people ended up revolting against leaders that they had previously loved and followed to the death. So, I mean, right now we're witnessing the biggest control mechanism digitally in history by far. We're entering into global depression. I mean, countries around the world, people are wondering for the first time, I wonder how the economy functions when literally nobody's working and everyone's at home and they're taking benefits from the government that they're printing out of thin air. How does that all work out? And the fact is, it doesn't work out. And we're going to witness unprecedented poverty out of this, bubbles bursting left and right. And yet there are solutions. And I've been trying to tell people for so long, there's more solutions than there are problems in the world. It's just about listening for once to people that don't have this benefit of leading you, and instead are just trying to shout from cliffs and from, platforms, telling people what they can or cannot do. But here's the thing. There's a lot of people asking about, it's a usual question. I can't stand the question, but nonetheless, I'm going to deliver it to you because I'm sure you've heard it enough times and I'm sure you have a good answer to it. People say, well, you can't eat gold. You can't eat silver. Yeah, but we also can't eat nothing at all. So, I mean, there's also that. But I wanted to hear your thoughts, David, on this argument that we've all heard a million times.
Yeah, I've written about it, try to be humorous. I mean, it's true. I mean, basically, it's not a bad idea to put some food back. I mean, I've been saying that kind of a low-key level for a long time. It's a no-lose bet. And if you're, poverty stricken or close to it, or you were once, middle class, lower middle class, whatever, upper middle class, doesn't really matter. The point I'm making is if you don't have much stability coming out of the CV-19 quarantine situation, you'd be smarter to buy some food than you would to invest in precious metals. So I'll just say that flat out. Having said that, if you are pretty secure, and then you want to look at metal and what, you can't eat paper is the joke I made. I said, paper has an advantage over gold because if you put enough spices in it and grind it up enough, it might taste like one of those nasty protein bars, but still the nutritional value of it is basically nothing. Right. With near-term history, if you look at Argentina, they were trading food for silver up until the reset. That was the 2000 financial crisis. And there's been others since then, and we're in one now in Argentina. So metals have proven to be preferred means of exchange, even for food. So can they be? Yes. Always and everywhere? Not necessarily. So you can make the argument, well, you can't. And as you said, Josh, and I've made that same argument many times. I'm a fairly good carnivore, and I've made the analogy that, if I had a Krugerrand, which right now is almost $1,700, and I wanted a steak, and I'm just the hell with it, man. I haven't had one in 6 months. I'll give you 1 ounce of gold for a 16-ounce steak, but there's no steak in my entire county. It doesn't matter. I can't buy it because it does not exist. Yeah. So that's something you got to factor in. But no, it's been the most coveted. So let's look at the other extreme. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is also where I live. I'm pretty close to the Palouse. The Palouse is one of the richest farmlands for wheat that exists in this country. So now if I see a wheat farmer out there and he's got, let's make up a number, 400 acres of wheat, he's got a wheat problem, a big wheat problem. So who is he going to trade with? Someone that gives him the greatest, latest big screen TV? How about an iPad? What about the iPhone 17? No, he's going to take some silver or gold, most likely to exchange for his wheat problem than he ever will for the latest gizmo or gadget. So there's a lot to think about.
Well, it's personal responsibility. I mean, when it comes down to it, that's a basis of humanity. That's a basis of freedom. If you're in on an island in the middle of nowhere and you have no way to survive, there's no animals, there's no plants, but there's, a telegraph machine or some kind of code machine from the 1800s, and you don't have a cell phone, you're not going to say, well, I want a cell phone. Well, too bad. This is a way that you're going to survive. Or, if you are in the middle of the woods, I would rather go out and sit in a fancy restaurant and have a good meal. Well, wouldn't everybody? But you're currently in this situation. I'm in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta right now. I've been here for a month and a half now. And I'll tell you, there's very few things that I could go and eat. I mean, it's tacos and quesadillas or nothing. And I mean, yeah, I would love to have something else. No offense to Mexican food, but my God, it's just like the only thing I can ever eat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I would love to do one thing or another, but I can't. It's not available. And I could throw, $20 million at it. The fact is, it's not here. So there's nothing you can do. And when it comes to, you can't eat gold, you can't eat silver. Well, yeah, but also it would be better to have gold and silver that you could exchange for food if there is nothing else to exchange. And then you could buy food instead of breaking into your neighbor's house and stealing the food. I mean, that's
or in Venezuela, having like your 15-year-old daughter have to sell herself to get food, which is what is going on in those types of places. And I make in my, even my own father was making comments like, "Oh, Tim, now this was in January before all this stuff broke down. He's like, Tim, you're being hyperbolic and all this other stuff." And I'm like, you know what, why I'm so passionate? I'm passionate because, I don't want my kids and grandkids have to be hoarding themselves out in order to feed people, because where things are going, that is where things will ultimately break down. And very quickly how things are changing, and all of a sudden this whole pandemic thing that's going on right now, I mean, obviously, I personally think it was being used as a skeleton key to then quote unquote shore up the financial system to make sure all the people that got us in trouble got bailed out of this. Maybe that's I don't know if that's an area that you'd want to necessarily touch on, but it's to me, this is, the ultimate wake up call of why people need to get prepared. And then people will still call us, fear mongering conspiracy shills, even at like a time like this.
But that's a good question for David. Like, do you think there's a plan behind all of this in some way? Even if it wasn't on purpose, they utilize a crisis in this kind of situation. We'll get your answers on that, and then I'll go to the super chat questions that we've got here.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many out there that I admire that are basically in the same field that I am and the fields that I touch. And, I try to respect all individuals and all points of view. I mean, I'm old enough to know that two people could see the exact same thing and see it differently. Mm-hmm. Having said all of that, I would say it's very convenient how this came about. I think it is real. I think it's probably a bioweapon. But I also think that it's been overplayed, and I think it's a great cover story for all that's going on. And I think some of the facts that have been proven about, you got run over by a car and let's put CV19 as the cause of death is ingenuous at best.
Yeah.
So I am still open-minded. I am fearful for how it may manifest in the future. I don't know if it'll ebb and flow and there'll be 3 series of it. I mean, there's people a lot smarter than me in that topic than I am. But from a fairly well-studied perspective that's looked at both sides for a while now, it was too convenient. It covers too many ill-fated moves. And if you followed my weekly broadcast, I've been showing the contraction in the global economy for months and months and months and months, while the current administration's been waving their hands back and forth saying it's great again. So
everything looks real great if you change the numbers to make it look great. And that leads me into another question, and you could screen share for this one, because we got 2 super chats from SRG, one for 99 cents, another for $3.99. And they said, what's the best way to buy physical silver? And I'm quite positive you have a good answer for that.
Yes, I do. I'm going to go to my own website, and I will get there in a hurry because my machine knows where I go most often. So this is the landing page. If you're not on it, get the free letter here. Just the first.
You still have to screen share to that.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No worries.
All right, there we are. So I just went to themorganreport.com and just sign up for the free letter here. And if you go up to the blog right here, click that. It'll bring you here. And on the right-hand side, it says buy silver and gold close to spot. So if you click that icon, you will see this page come up that says precious metal savings. And that will bring you to this landing page that describes this. Are you seeing my screen?
We were, but then it cut out.
I if you could share one more time, because when we were doing that, I went to it, and I think we hit shares at the same time. Mine overrid yours, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
I was trying to help you out there on the fly, but then I lost where we're going, so I apologize for that. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
There we are. So should I backtrack or not?
Will you just click on buy silver or gold at spot on your main page?
Yeah, that's not on the main page. So you go to the landing page, and then you go to the blog, and the blog will take you on the right-hand side. It says buy silver and gold near spot. When you click that, you'll get on this page here. And this explains the program. You're buying physical metal near spot. And then when you go to cash out is when you pay the premium. So you buy the metal now and you wait for the premium to come down, and then you cash it in for silver maples or silver eagles or silver rounds or silver wafers or 100-ounce bars or 10-ounce bars or whatever. Now, there is a limit minimum, which I think is fair because it costs as much to mail you 1 ounce as it would to buy 1 ounce. So there is a 20-ounce minimum, which you could accumulate fairly easily. So you just hit this get started. And the reason I put the landing page was to explain it. Start right here. And this is sort of in your face. But all you're really doing is give them an email, make up a username and a password, and then you create an account. Now, you're not creating an account that you are required to buy. You're basically on their mailing list. And once you're on their mailing list, you could create an account and go right in and buy today. So you don't have to be on the savings program buying monthly, which is kind of what it's set up for. But you could buy one time gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and again, buy it near the spot price and wait for the premiums to come back to normal and then cash it out in whatever form you choose, which is almost anything you can think of. I mean, it's all government coins, privately minted medallions, 1 ounce wafers of whatever variety, almost any refiner you can name. So there's a huge selection most of the time. The market's pretty tight right now. I don't want to be overemphasizing there's like anything you could dream up is available right now, because it's not. But once things subside, if they subside, and if they don't, let's take that scenario for a second, Tim and Josh. You're buying commercial bars near spot. And if you're really creative, you could pull your money and take 1,000 ounces as an example, get a hold of me, and I'll send you to a private mint in Florida, and they could make that into your own rounds, and you could have World Alternative Media stamped on it, right?
Right.
You could make a $5 premium, put $3 in your pocket because they're going to mint it for about $1.50.
How's that, guys? You want Wham coins? Anyone want Wham coins?
Yeah,
we get a $20 one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
anyway, there's lots of ways to skin a cat. That's one. So I just wanted to point that out. So hopefully that was clear for everybody.
Yeah,
and I do want. Sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
I know that when we had talked in the past, that we know a lot of financial advisors. I mean, I'm a financial advisor. They'll say, keep 3 to 6 months in cash. And, I almost think it's a better idea if you're going to keep 3 months in cash, just keep 3 months in silver, because that can be turned into cash. And obviously, I think that that's pretty much a softball for what you're doing. But can people in that program, like, can they set up like an automatic payment of like, hey, I want to put $20 a month in, or every?
Pretty much how it's designed. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm excited. I really like it. I know these guys. I went there on my own dime. I flew out. I met them. I've been in it over 10 years. I've got many Morgan Report subscribers involved with this. I've had 0 complaints. No one has ever called me and said, I don't like it. So once you're involved, it's only for Canadians and Americans. You can't do it if you're European, Australian, or whatever, South African. Sorry, it's just the way it's mandated right now. But once you start saving, you just dollar cost average. And I think the minimum is 100 a month. It might be 50 a month. It's not real high. It's not super low. And yeah, you just go with it. And then let's say hard times come, like right now. You could keep your account and just put it on pause. So there were a lot of people when they really should have been buying, in my view, we got these extremely low silver prices and gold prices. But everyone's individual. It might have, 2 people working, one might have lost their job, or they got a new job that paid half what their other job did, or whatever. There's lots of reasons, but you can pause it. So you can start it. You can be, accumulating for a year and say, hey, hang on, keep your account and just put it on pause for a while.
Or they got laid off and now are making more money being unemployed, and they can take the difference and put it into silver.
But I'm with you. I've always advocated, if you're going to hold cash, hold it in silver and have that 3 months in silver. Now, if everybody did that, the silver price would be well over $100.
Yeah, that scarcity would definitely add up with the demand.
Silver per person to wipe out the annual supply, and that's in 5% of the population.
Absolutely. And I want to get back. I got a couple more questions I want to get to you, but first I do want to mention Mickey in the super chat sent 50 Norwegian kroners, and said in the super chat, dollar bills suck as toilet paper because they clog up the toilet when you try to flush, just like they clog up the economy. Well, I appreciate the super chat, my friend. Always good to see you. And Daniel Lowe sent £5 in the super chat. And someone by the name of Lycan Warrior sent $10 in the super chat and says, precious metals like cash could be tainted by COVID-19, they will say, and put a laughing face. Yeah, this is the kind of world we're living in right now. They'll say, well, gold, silver, it might have a virus on it, which is almost impossible when you ship it in the mail. It's just, that's not scientific. But of course, that's what they will say. There's a famous CNN article about a month ago that said, do not take your money out of the bank. It might be tainted with COVID-19, which is absurd to anyone. I mean, just first of all, the machines are rather hot. Second of all, they're usually crisp bills. And third of all, that's just not scientific. That's just not going to happen. But you mentioned something when you're talking there about, who knows how long this will last. How long do you think this is going to last? Because I'm getting really tired of this whole thing. I can't wait because you're in Washington State, obviously. So you've been witnessing it for longer than most of the United States, just the shutdowns and the crackdowns. When is this going to relent? It's driving me crazy.
Well, Inslee said that some of the businesses can open on the 6th, which is another week or so. And I forget what they were. I was going to look
if the Crown does permit.
Where it is, but
that's the governor of Washington for people.
Yes, thank you, Tim. And then they're going to kind of look at it after that. So the gym that I frequent, because I still try to stay in shape, still going to be closed. I was hoping it would open at the same time, and I just got a hold of the owner, and they told me no, but they said these are available. And like I said, if I had my phone, I'd read them to you. So looks like slowly but surely it's going to open up again, but it'll never be the same. It'll never be the same. I hate to use the word never. It's unlikely to be the same in any reasonable length of time.
Yeah. Well, and another question I have then is regarding the movement towards silver and gold. I have noticed a lot more people that are not in this kind of world financially at all talking about buying silver and gold lately, just your everyday person on the street, because they're faced with an economic crisis. They cannot ignore it. It's not just us crazy people on YouTube talking about, well, the economy is pumped up on fake money and all that kind of stuff. It's everyday people walking down the street and recognizing that they're out of work, and obviously there are major tremors in the economy. Do you see, at least where you are, people moving into silver and gold, just your average person?
Oh yeah, it's pretty easy from where I stand, because I do consultations, and it's half price for paid members, but it's $500 an hour for the general public. And I think I went 3 or 4 years without a single consultation. And now I'm doing like 4 to 6 a week. And these are people that knew all this stuff, listened to me and you and others about the system's collapse, or let's say difficulties. And all of a sudden they're on the phone saying, where do I buy it? Who do I buy it from? How do I store it? Where do I put it? How much should I get? Where do I, on and on. I mean, this is like, it's not panic mode, Josh, but I mean, it's measurably different than it used to be. And some of these people are held their wealth primarily in, let's say, conventional instruments, meaning bank accounts, bonds, and stocks, primarily in general stock market and real estate. And they are all concerned that they need to move some into the precious metals. And now they're finding out that it's not that easy to obtain currently, because a lot of people have the same idea. And as far as I'm concerned, we're just getting warmed up. I mean, what's different between us and 2008 is that this is the physical economy crashing as well as the financial structure at the same time. And it's accelerating to the downside.
And we do have some people mentioning, Raphael Miller wrote in the chat, says, you can't get gold in some places. Are there really places that you literally cannot get gold or silver?
Yeah, well, you asked me at the beginning of the show, and I failed to answer it about obtainability of silver. I mean, silver is much more difficult, and I think by design throughout Europe. There's a huge value-added tax. unless you go to the Perth Mint in Australia, it's pretty difficult to get. Most of the coin dealers around the world are gold only. I mean, it's very difficult to get silver unless you're willing to pay a huge premium. Most people say, I want precious metals. I know gold. Gold is establishment. I'll buy the gold. So there's that aspect of it. And yes, there are areas that are almost impossible to get gold. He's not, making it up. I mean, sometimes a situation like that, what I recommend, depending on what you really want to do, is buy it in the U.S., but you have to store it in the U.S. for a while. And then if you had a friend, relative, trusted third party, you could probably get it out of the vault as long as you got, signature control. In other words, you deem them to be your signature to go get it, put it in their pocket, and, mail it to you or whatever. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, yeah, he's right. There are areas that are almost impossible to get it.
Wow. Most of us, it's no surprise to us that you won't find the brightest people in the world in the banks often. Many of the advisors in the banks, we do have a financial advisor on the stream with us right now, but I mean, most financial advisors, let's be fair, don't know a whole lot about the monetary system, and it's surprising and it's scary. And I'll never forget being Canadian years ago. I wanted to buy a bunch of silver, and I found out that, Scotiabank held quite a lot of silver, allegedly. So I went to every Scotiabank in town, including one which was a skyscraper, and went to them and asked if I could buy silver at the bank. And I was like 14. I was just really interested in the idea of it. And they ended up taking me into a room and questioning me on why I wanted to buy silver and what's the deal. And they didn't know what I was talking about. I said, well, the financial system, one of these days it'll be good to have silver and gold. And they're just looking at me like I'm a crazy person. I was like 14, and these guys.
Who was your father? And did he put you up to this? No. Hey, Rob.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And so it was very shocking to me. And that was one of my first major lessons, that it wasn't just people on YouTube saying these guys don't know what they're talking about. It's a fact that most of them don't know what they're talking about, to the point where they almost wanted to call the police on me for daring to ask for silver. So I think it is by design. I mean, what do you think, what are some of the clearest signs to you of especially the banking system attempting to stop people from buying silver or gold, especially considering we are witnessing almost 50-50 divide between private and public ownership today? What do you think, David?
Well, I think it's become for a very long time. I mean, if you read a book that was published, I think in the 1800s, called The Coming Battle, it talks about the battle with the bankers and taking silver out of the monetary system. I can reflect almost word for word what you said in Argentina. I mean, everyone said, Argentina mines a lot of silver, and they've got these little fold out cards that are, about the size of an 8x10 postcard on all the bank teller windows with two, gold and silver coins. I went to 3 banks, and I've got a witness, David Smith, that's worked with me for years. And, I finally got up to the 3rd bank. I could finally get a gold coin, but no silver whatsoever at all. And yet they all have these little cards out there saying you can buy it with pesos. I had pesos. I wanted silver. Try me next time. So it's, is it all by design? I mean, I believe in some conspiracies because they're true, and there is no such thing as a conspiracy, really. It's either true or it's false. It's that simple. It's true or it's false. And the truth was, it was very difficult to get silver in Argentina, even though they advertise it all over the place. That's the truth.
And a lot of Argentinians would do well with silver, especially in these times. Argentina has been through 12 major inflationary events in the last century. I mean, and they just keep renaming their new currency, the peso. I mean, it's just how many times you have to be through it until people start to realize, hey, this is a scam. Let's actually try to ensure our wealth. And I think they've had lots of opportunities to do that in Argentina. We have lots of Argentinian viewers. Let's hope they do it this time.
The saying used to be as rich as an Argentine, because at one point they were I think they're the richest South American country. And just like David said, that can go away very, very quickly in a blink of an eye.
Right. And David, I wanted to ask you what you are most excited for in the future. There's lots of negatives out there. I think there's lots of positives in the silver and gold markets going forward. But what are you most excited for? What are you anticipating in the next year or so that's positive as far as silver, gold, the financial system, hopefully a little bit more freedom than we're
The
currently
vaccine
witnessing right now?
certificates. No.
Yeah, I can't wait for those.
It's people like you. It's people like you and Tim. It's people that are willing, no matter what their age, to get a strong grip on reality and be able to take the chance to say it and to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. I think people that are implementing things like the AGX coin and other cryptos that are backed by real metal, I think are at the forefront of the new monetary system, or a way to opt out of the perhaps government controlled digital only. I think that the ability of the human spirit to, under pressure, do better, not necessarily worse. There's a choice to be made. As I said earlier, two people could say exactly the same thing and see it differently. Some will see it as an opportunity to become more self-reliant, more dependent on a community that they know and trust. I think speaking your word always and everywhere is important. I think that the breakdown of this look into the black screen nonsense, and I'm guilty of it too, all the time, is going to be supplanted with let's look each other in the eye and do what we say we're going to do and see what we can do to make each other's lives better. So I think we're going to get a spiritual re-evaluation on from the individual all the way through the community to the state to the county, state, whatever. And I'm basically not a statist, but the point I'm making is that I think we're going to be able to come through this with better connections for humanity and realize it's what you have. It's not what you have. It's really our connections with each other is the most important currency that we do have and can maintain and can develop and come back to, which we seem to have lost along this materialistic, how much stuff can I get? Let's get more real about what we can do as humans for and with each other, and leave the bankers to go play their money games off to the side. I hope that's obviously very idealistic. I know they want to control us. I know they're putting it in place. And I also know they want to go to a digital only cashless system. I'm not unaware of that. I write about, in fact, I'm a technical advisor on a TV show that will be coming out in the not too distant future. Having said all that, I still have enough idealism in me that people like you that are willing to resist and do it peacefully do have the ability to probably at least move to the side, if you will, as a metaphor, to sidestep this draconian technocracy that they want, because not everyone's going to comply. I'll guarantee you, not everyone is going to comply.
You mentioned something I think is very important regarding humanity kind of as a currency. And it's interesting, when things get very scarce, but very much in demand, they end up becoming very valuable things. And we have for a long time witnessed a scarcity of humanity, unfortunately. And I believe, as the old saying goes, hard times create strong men. And I hope that this really comes to fruition in all of this madness that we're witnessing today. I think there is a silver lining there, no pun intended, a silver lining that I think people will be working together, will be caring for each other more, will be really proving their ideas, their views, their thoughts, their goodness in a world that is extremely uncertain now more than ever before. And it's easy to get, into, well, the conspiracies, or no, listen to the CDC, or no, listen to the government, and they know what's right. And it doesn't matter what your ideologies are. At the end of the day, I've found people left, right, and center and outside of the spectrum everywhere I go lately that would agree that we just need to come together and not be dependent on some centralized entity, just work together and prove our humanity. So I really think that's important going forward. And I appreciate you bringing up the idea of the currency of humanity. People don't recognize the demand that they as individuals have on a market, that market being, good versus evil, and talking with another person and conversing with another person and hopefully changing their life for the better. Closing it off today, I want you to let everyone know where they can find more of your work, get involved in the work you do, because the Morgan Report is a very insightful website that I definitely recommend everyone go check out. And of course, it's in the description below, my friends, so make sure to go there. But where can people find more of your work? What are some of the projects you're working on coming up? I'd love to hear it.
Okay, well, the best is the landing page, morganreport.com. You can navigate around, as I showed you earlier. And then I do have a YouTube channel, a Twitter feed, and a very minor Facebook presence. I'm also working on, as a technical advisor on The Last Evangelist, which is talking about end time scenario, biblically oriented, and what that mark of the beast system might look like. So I'm involved in that. I'm doing more behind the desk. The Money Show has invited me almost on every show. I usually accept 1 or 2 a year. I'll be doing one of those. So if you just get on the free email list, you'll be privy to all the webinars I do for free, the conferences that will be online, interviews like yours that will be bookmarked on the blog. And I just really want to be of maximum service to everyone, really. And the truth is the most important thing that we can give to each other. And the truth is all fiat fails. So let's realize that we need each other more, and we need each other. They need us more than we need them. We could do just fine without them. I mean, the more I learn about the true definition of anarchy, is nothing to do with Molotov cocktails and everything to do with strong individualism, respecting each other for what we are, not putting anyone in a box, accepting them just the way they are, and being good most of the time as humanly possible and working with each other. It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah, as an anarchist, I can guarantee you I have no monocle. I do not grow a curly mustache, and I don't bomb parades. So I just agree. You have one of the most insightful blogs out there. So I really recommend people go and check that out.
There's also a YouTube video. There's a YouTube video that you wanted to mention too. The Beyond a Pale Horse. Was that something you wanted people to check out?
No. Is it too late to share the screen again?
Go ahead. Go for it.
All right.
So I want to make sure we got that. You got that in there.
That share. So again, sorry folks, but if you go to the Morgan Report, that's the landing page. Just put your thing in here. If you go over here to About, and you'll see my handsome face, but that's the joke. But the point is, you can watch this movie called Four Horsemen. Okay. It's for free on YouTube. So if you just click that, you will see kind of a catch-up video. It was published a long time ago. It's an hour and a half long, but it'll really give you an insight into what's going on. And most of your audience will know this, but it's great to send to their social media for people to say, oh, that Morgan doesn't know what he's talking about. Josh has been saying the same thing. Oh, that Tim, are you kidding? He's selling his own book and all that nonsense. Watch this for an hour and a half, and you will be, in my view, most people will be convinced of the truth. And the truth is we are in dire straits, and we need to work together, not apart.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate having you as always. I think we've been having you on now for about 4 years or so, and always enjoyed having your insight on these matters, especially in a time that's more uncertain than ever. And people are all like, the number one questions I'm getting right now are, what are we going to do about silver? What are we going to do about gold? What are we going to do to protect ourselves in this unbelievable, strange Twilight Zone-esque time that we're living in? And, I think there are more solutions than problems as always. And again, humanity is a big part of that. So we should all be a little bit more close with the people around us. And I really appreciate the message that you're spreading there. We're going to get going right away here, guys. For those of you watching, make sure to hit that like button, share on social media. We are shadow banned because, well, why wouldn't we be at this point in time? So make sure to share in as many places as you can, because people on YouTube do not get notified of our videos anymore. So we need you guys to share for us to be reached. So I really appreciate all the work that all the people out there are doing to help keep this message up, alive and well, and keep people educated on these issues. And a big thank you to Tim as well for always. He's not a programmer guy, but he's been running all these live streams as a financial planner. So I really
the reason I'm able to do it is because we have no clients calling us with problems right now. And we've got other people that we've hired throughout all this, thanks to people who are listening. And we have the ability to put gold and silver into IRAs as well. So that is something we can help advise on. But we bought put options in January, so we were unaffected by what went on. And so it would be great to have. So if your financial advisor didn't do it, you don't know their names, you want to be able to help support this broadcast, support what we're doing over here. That's just one way to do it. We know we don't need every person to do it, but if 0.01% of people who are subscribed to WHAM, became a client, we could, and the thing is, it's not about promoting myself. Everything I'm doing is, and 110% is going back into the business. It's about being able to not have to rely on sponsors, have to rely on people that can control our message. And so since no one is controlling my message, I were able to get the truth out and not have to worry about, oh, well, I can't say this because it's going to upset this person. Unless it upsets
Absolutely.
Josh, then
Yeah. Well, yeah. And unless it upsets me, then I say pull the stream. No, I'm just kidding. But I really, I really appreciate it, guys. And we'll be back with you guys with much more. There's lots more to talk about in the news. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. Hit that like button, share, and until next time. Thank you, David. This is Josh Searton, Tim Picciott, and David Morgan signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.